Josh and Brian here with the Leonhardt Team, Cold Banker Realty, a top 10 team in Minnesota and Wisconsin. We sell over 150 homes a year. This is what we wish every home buyer knew starting the home buying process.
Tip number one is to meet with an agent. You'd be amazed how many times we meet with somebody that if they just understood the process a little bit better, had we met them a little bit earlier, we could have A, maybe saved them a lot of money, but B, the number one thing is save them a lot of stress.
Right.
I think that there's too many times where I've seen that. And I think the best way to do that, of where you start before you get to anywhere else, is to interview a few different agents.
Correct.
You know, what do you look for? What's important? How do you find them? What do you look for? What's important?
I think one is figuring out who you're comfortable working with and who's, there's the big debate all the time, full-time, part-time. It's hiring a full-time agent. They're going to be there for you. We've had that example a couple times this year already where, buyer was working with a part-time agent. They were missing contracts getting in, couldn't get the buyers into homes on time. Where if you're working with a full-time agent, that agent is, there to be readily available for you.
I think it's important to note that sometimes a buyer underestimates the value of an agent until they need them.
Right.
Really. Until maybe you started with, it was a family friend, right? You hear that a lot, right?
Yep.
A family friend, I know somebody, and they help start to look for you, and then maybe you do end up buying. Maybe the process went good, right? But you don't really need an agent until you actually need one.
Right.
You can get through the process with somebody that doesn't know a lot. They'll get you through the contracts. It's not super complicated. But the extra things that you could actually really benefit from, take somebody that's really good at it and that does it a lot.
Right.
I think that's some of the things that I think people underestimate of, well, why would I start with an agent?
Right.
Why would I have this conversation? I'm not buying yet. It's not that complicated. I've done it a few times in the past. And it's like, well, you're not totally wrong. But there are things that I can help with that, you guys wouldn't even know would be a thing, that you wouldn't know. And you'd get through the process and be just fine. But there might be a chance where I can help you in a way that you never recognize or that other agents don't recognize.
Right. So what would be some questions you would ask a agent if you're meeting as a buyer? What would be a good question to ask an agent?
I think it's really important that, when you say you get along with your agent, I think it's that you trust them. And I think you have to ask them the hard questions that you have reservations about them, right?
Right.
Let's say that they are, you are looking in a different area than they are located, right? And that might be a concern with you, so you're not going to trust their opinion as much. So you ask those questions. I think the other questions that you ask is, how long have you been doing this? How many homes have you sold? Do you have a support staff around you, that's going to help us through this process? I think one of the things that we do well that I didn't realize was as important to buyers as it is, is the fact of our support staff that we have, and not just the people, in this office. I think when it comes to the title company that we choose, our vendors, our inspector that we recommend, our photographer that we recommend when listing a house, our handyman that we recommend when helping with issues. I think those things help so dramatically in the process for a buyer. There's only so much I can do, right?
Yep.
There's so many more moving pieces when it comes to the lender and all the other things that add into it that end up creating this whole experience, because you have 5 or 6 different people that are part of this transaction, and we're here to make sure that those people are all good in doing their job so we can get to where you want to go. And I think that's an important thing to ask and to make sure that they know that they have, so they can help you with things that you wouldn't even expect us to help with.
When problems come up, I need a door frame painted because of lender required work order, something like that. Those are things that it's good to have if your agent has that knowledge or has those people in place.
And that doesn't always come up as a need.
Correct.
And you may have, bought a property with somebody that's only sold one property and it was a family friend. They were doing it part-time and it all went really smoothly, right? You don't need us until you really need us, right?
Yep.
And then we can show you
the problem solving.
Then it becomes to go, oh, now I get it. And you don't have that until you actually run into that. And
Right.
sometimes it happens. A lot of times there is some point in the process that it does happen,
Right.
but not always.
Right.
But I think that that's something important about knowing that you have a good agent that you do trust to give you good advice that has your best interest in mind. That has to be that. That has to be the way you feel about them. And if you don't feel like that with them, you have to tell them that. And you have to see why.
Right.
And you have to maybe even give them the chance to explain themselves, you know? I get this a lot, is where I'll see a buyer or a seller change their mind about something that I didn't anticipate. And it usually comes from somebody on the outside.
Right.
Maybe it was a neighbor that said something about what their home value was worth, right? Or it was a family friend that says they do real estate in a different state and goes, that doesn't make sense, you know? I understand you're frustrated with this because you heard something from somebody else, but you also didn't tell me that, right?
Right.
And I have to ask you, and I have to ask that hard question. Like, I see that you're frustrated with this. What is it? Let me understand it completely, because you're right. Maybe I did make a mistake.
Right.
Maybe I am wrong with this.
Right.
That happens. That happens. But also, maybe it's just you had bad information from somebody that you do trust more than me. Which
Right.
happens.
Right.
Plenty of people that you should trust more than me.
That's
and that
why
you will.
mom and dads come to showings and
Exactly.
tell you, build that trust, and
Yes.
they understand what this process is about, and that we are here to help and do know what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think that when that happens, or when those things come into play, is having an agent to understand that and work through you with that understanding and flex to what you need and how you want the process to go, not just how I want the process to go. It's different for every person.
Right.
Being able to adapt to that takes a lot of time, a lot of different experiences to be able to figure out what that is.
Yep.
So that's where I think you start, because they'll identify problems that you may have not anticipated. They'll set you up in the best situation, and also you'll be able to find out, because it's hard to work with an agent and then find out, 3 months down the road, if you've taken a bunch of their time, you feel like attached to them, to like fire them at that point because you realize they didn't do a really good job.
Right.
Right. Or you might just stick all the way through with them, even though you really are frustrated with the process, and you won't find somebody else.
Right.
So I think it's doing that up front will lay the groundwork to put you in the best position possible.
And I think a good agent will set the expectations of what the process, what the market looks like at this point in time. This is what, 2020, 2021, it was, hey, we're going to probably have to write 10 offers on 10 different properties before we get one accepted, because there's 30 buyers for every house listed because of the inventory shortage. It's understanding those expectations and having an agent explain those expectations to you, I think makes a huge difference in the process of knowing what's going on. If it's all of a sudden it's, hey, you said it was going to take 10 and we're at 25. Why is that? What is going on? Am I doing something wrong? Do we need to change something?
And I think it's knowing that it does take an agent that's been around a lot of transactions, that's been doing it, in the last year a fair amount of times to
Right.
understand exactly how the market is changing. Because if you take somebody that, just sold a couple of properties 2 years ago, and now they're going to try to help you buy a property now, well, it's changed a lot.
Right.
A lot of things have changed since then, and you have to be able to know what those things are to be able to set that expectation for your client and put them in the best position possible. And it's hard to do if you don't do it often.
Right.
Because it changes dramatically and quickly. And that's I think a really important reason to know and trust the agent and choose your agent. You have a choice.
Correct. The market changes so quickly. So
Don't just click on Zillow and get the first agent you do get.
Right.
Even though a lot of times it might be us, but a lot of times, don't just go with the first person that's close to you, the first person that you remember, or the one neighbor or the one relative that says they got their real estate license.
Right.
I think it's important to choose.
Have a conversation with them and make sure you believe what they're telling you and can trust what they're telling you.
Yes. With that being said, the first thing that they probably will most likely have you do is get pre-approved. And
Yes.
the big reason is, why do we recommend getting pre-approved?
So we understand what direction you're going to go. What price range am I going to be? What are closing costs? I mean, you'll talk so much with your lender about 19 different things, and just it'll give you a basis of understanding of, hey, what can you afford? What are interest rates today? What does that principal and interest? What does PITI mean? There's so many different things that a buyer needs to know and understand, and getting pre-approved, that a good lender should walk you through that. And if you're working with the right agent, they will connect you with a lender that should be able to explain those things to you, so you as the buyer understand what's going on through this process of, hey, how is my credit? What's my debt to income? Where should I be? What is comfortable for me? Should I maybe pay off these debts to qualify higher? What working with the lender and getting through that pre-approval process will help in the front end to help your knowledge of understanding. But then when it comes to offer time, the lender, a seller can look at a pre-approval letter and it states, hey, this guy's been through underwriting. We've seen bank statements, we've seen pay stubs and the taxes, and we've verified everything. He is good. He's a solid buyer. That ensures the seller that, hey, we have a good, solid buyer that's going to purchase our property, and we feel comfortable moving forward with that offer versus, something that just states, hey, we've seen some of his income, but don't have it all the way through. So
it's so important for a home buyer during the process to feel comfortable making a decision that they're going to make, which ends up being a very large decision, is to have as much education about the process as possible, right? And a huge piece of that is going to, how much is this going to actually cost you?
correct.
Right? How much? I can't tell you what that's going to be. I can give you a rough estimate of what I think it might be, but everybody's financial situation is different.
Correct.
And those things change what it's going to cost for you. If you don't know what that is, how can you actually make an informed decision on what you're buying?
And be comfortable with that decision.
Exactly. So doing that early on just solves a piece of the puzzle that's easy to do early on. And I think a lot of people don't do it because it's the assumption of, oh, it's not that I can get pre-approved really quickly. I have a good relationship with my bank. It's not going to take me long. I don't have any concerns with that.
Right.
It's like, okay, I get that you don't have an issue with getting pre-approved, but you don't know what you will be pre-approved for.
Right.
You probably don't know that. And I know that you probably don't know what the cost is or what the payments might be or what interest rates are today. Right. Those things that are helpful to you. It's not necessarily the process of going, oh, it's going to take you too long to be able to do it, or that you can't do it. I know you probably can. Right. But knowing that is just going to help you make a better decision on this. So why not just do the work now? It doesn't cost you anything.
Correct. And it's good for a period of time.
Yeah. And you can just redo it. And then at that point, you can set yourself up to be more financially fit, I guess, during the process, to pay off some more debts or improve your credit score, to get a better interest rate. There's things you can do when you understand where you're currently sitting and how you can get to another place and have some flexibility. But then also, it's just one of the most important pieces to help tell the story so you can make a good decision, be comfortable with it.
Correct. And going back to how many times I've had it a couple of times where buyers walked in to get pre-approved and it's like, hey, you got this late payment. Well, that's not me. So now we're working 30 days to work with credit bureaus and things like that to get that cleared up, so your credit score is where it should have been. And having that, if you don't do that up front and you wait until, hey, I've seen a house today, I want to make an offer on it, but now all of a sudden my credit's not good enough, or I can't issue the pre-approval letter because we have this flag in here that might not even be it's not your issue. It's, something that just got mismarked. It happens all the time. So having that information up front and getting it done before you really start the process does help.
Because the biggest mistake I see people making is they don't get pre-approved. They find the house that they absolutely love, and it's on a Friday night, and they go, I need to get pre-approved. It's like, well, offers are due tomorrow at 10 a.m. All right, you want to try to start this process? Let me see if I can get to a lender that's going to be able to get this turned around in 6 hours before we have to submit this offer.
Correct.
Right? And then,
hopefully there's no flags or hiccups in the process of doing that.
Exactly. And you miss out on the chance of that property that you absolutely love, and you don't get it just because you didn't do a little bit of homework.
Right.
Is really what it is.
Yep. A little bit of pre-planning.
Yeah. That's why you get pre-approved. And those are some of the things, I think, reasons why people don't. And I think reasons why you really should. That we wish everybody just did that before they came.
Correct.
To us. Yep. And then I think the next step past that is to go, where are you looking? What's important to you? And I think the idea behind that is always, why are you looking for that?
Right.
What problem are you trying to solve with the situation that you currently have? Because the whole point is to put you in a better position than you are in now, right?
Right.
So identifying exactly what you think you want and then actually what you need. Because too many times we meet people that go, I want a 3-bed, 4-bath, right? And it's this, and it's like, okay, sounds good. Why do you want that?
Right.
Like, oh, just because I need this because of this. And it's like, oh, well, did you know that this actually does the exact same thing?
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, you thought it was this, but here, as somebody who looks on the market all the time and works with a ton of different buyers that have the same situation that you're in, this is another option.
Right.
And maybe a really cheap option.
And the biggest one I think a lot of times we run into is I don't want a split entry home. And how many times of how many times has that buyer came and walked back in and said, hey, a split entry, no, this actually does work. It's knowing and understanding what you want and having that communication with your agent, I think. Hey, this is what I'm looking for. He could set the expectations. You guys could talk about location. Am I moving because of work? Am I moving because of schools? What is the problem that is said we're trying to solve? And how can you and the agent work together to figure out what is the best?
How can we put you in a better position now than you are, right? So you can be happy, right?
Yep.
We're really just kind of solving a problem. So the house is too small, or we need more space, or, but I think another one on the point is we always get a lot of people that go, oh, I want 5+ acres. Right?
Yep.
And it's like, well, why do you want 5+ acres? Oh, because I want
privacy.
Privacy. It's like, well, you can get a 5-acre property that's right next to somebody else's house.
Correct.
Off of a busy road. That, yes, you do have 5 acres, but it's not peaceful at all.
Right.
You can then get that same half-acre property in the right neighborhood, and it's more peaceful than any 10-acre
Correct.
property ends up being.
Right.
So I think it's realizing that don't let some of those things confine you a lot.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Where it goes, you can get the same feeling that you're looking for, the same feeling of space, or the same function that you're looking for a different price, as long as we place it someplace else.
Yep.
Right? Those things can change. So I think it's sometimes and a lot of times that's what happens is you start looking and you go, I thought I wanted this, and it's like, okay, well, we can refine it to get more options if we start looking here, or add this area that you said you didn't want to be in, but you actually realize that you would love to be in that area.
Right.
So it'll always kind of change, and you'll have to pick and choose what things you really want and what things you just kind of want, and a lot of those kind of wants end up disappearing.
Right.
And then you'll get down to the 3 things that are most important to you, and making sure those 3 things are there, and finding a way to make sure that the other kind of things can be maybe possibilities in the future.
Right.
Or finding ways for that.
You're never going to probably check all boxes, but check your main 2 or 3 that, hey, the location or the number of bedrooms on a level, something, what is your main 3 priorities, and the other 7 kind of matter, kind of don't matter.
Important part is, why are you choosing those 3 things?
Correct.
What is the reason that you're wanting to make this move in the first place? Because that's usually your most important reason.
Right.
So we have to solve that problem.
Right.
And those 3 things that you choose should be a defining answer to why you're doing this in the first place.
Right.
And those are the top 3 things that we wish more home buyers did in advance and did before they even started looking at homes.
Correct.
For more helpful tips like this, we have a full buyer playbook. Feel free to look down below and download that buyer's guide for more helpful information like this.